Joining me right now is Tennessee Senator, member of the Judiciary and Armed Services Committee, Marsha Blackburn. Senator, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.
So when does this become a real worry that something doesn't get done between the two countries and both economies gets impacted?
Maria, we are working on this issue every single day. This week I've been working on wire products and charcoal grills and polysilicon and ag products and talking with the trade rep, and I think we are all watching very closely. I think the comment that was just made about the ag community really hanging with the president is very true, because they want this issue resolved. It has been a problem for a long time. They want to get this resolved. They want more markets. They want trade. They don't want aid. And they are hanging in here with this, and we're all pushing and working as diligently as we can to get a resolution.
So yesterday we had on the CEO of Trek Bikes, and he said to me basically that, yeah, it's part of the plan that if this continues, I'm going to raise the price of bikes. So, you know, families are going to see they want to buy a bicycle for their kids. That's going to be more expensive than they thought. You look at the high price of fresh tomatoes, right? Americans preparing for sticker shock at the grocery store. The Trump administration imposing these new duties on imported Mexican tomatoes, that has to hit as well. So do you worry that prices are going to start moving higher and the American consumer will feel this?
Of course you worry about that, and you're concerned about it. And people want to see free and fair trade and free and fair markets. And consumers are very watchful of the price, but they also know that China has been stealing our intellectual property. They've been reverse engineering when it comes to components that go into manufacturing automobiles. Tennesseans will tell you we need to deal with this issue, and we want China to be a fair player in a world economy. And we're going to continue to work on this issue and try to get a resolution that will be that fair resolution for everybody involved in this process.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the Chinese are thinking, because I spoke with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin last week, right before he got on the plane to go to Beijing. And at that interview on Sunday night, everything seemed like they were coming to an agreement. They were in the 11th hour. And all of a sudden now we get this Reuters report that the Chinese have backtracked on everything. Listen to Steven Mnuchin just 1 week ago, Senator. What would be the most ideal situation in this next round of talks?
Well, Maria, I think the good news is we've made a lot of progress. I think we've been talking about this for 2 years, starting with President Trump and President Xi at Mar-a-Lago, talking about a desire to have a rebalanced trading relationship, and that's something President Xi agreed to. Over the last 4 months, Ambassador Lighthizer and a large interagency team has done an extraordinary job. I think we've made more progress than ever before. This is a real agreement. If we get to a completed agreement, it will have real enforcement provisions. There's still some important issues, so we still have more work to do.
So have you gotten the enforcement mechanism done? Is that agreed upon?
The enforcement mechanism is close to done. So I would say that's one of the areas we've made a lot of progress. It needs a little bit of fine-tuning, but I would say we have a fundamental understanding in that area.
And yet, Senator, then we get the report that in each of the 7 chapters of the draft trade deal, China deleted its commitments to change laws to resolve core complaints that caused the U.S. to launch the trade war in the first place, like the theft of intellectual property, like the forced transfer of technology.
That is exactly right, and what we know is that the Chinese are still planning to come, so there is hopefulness that we're going to be able to resolve this. And Maria, as you and I have talked many times, in Tennessee we have so many individuals that intellectual property underpins much of what they do, whether it is entertainment, whether it's healthcare, financial services, and of course auto manufacturing. And they are resolute when they say we have to make certain that these data transfer and these intellectual property provisions are a part of the trade agreement.
Absolutely.
Not an afterthought, but a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, look, Microsoft former CEO told me it cost them $10 billion a year because 90% of the companies in China have the Microsoft operating system, only 1% pay for it. Let me move on to the border. We were at the border a week ago, Senator. You met with President Trump at the White House yesterday to talk about this crisis, and it comes as Homeland Homeland Security Department Chief McAleenan says that over 1% of the Guatemalan and Honduran populations have entered the United States in September. We're also looking at this federal appeals court in San Francisco ruling that the administration can continue returning Central American migrants to Mexico while they await asylum. Former Vice President and 2020 candidate Joe Biden even spoke about this. He has said he has a plan to solve the crisis yesterday. Watch this.
You know, we can solve the problem of the border, and it stands and it starts not at the border. We can do it by making the countries and helping the countries where they're fleeing from better, so they don't want to leave in the first place. And it was working. The president just now has cut all that money.
So is that the answer, to help these countries so that they don't leave their country? Senator, what do you think the answer is?
I've got to tell you, Joe Biden and Barack Obama had their shot at fixing these issues, but because they did not, what you have is every town is a border town, every state is a border state, and it is one of the reasons we do have to secure the southern border into all of this drug trafficking and human trafficking. And I applaud the White House team. They've worked together in a very collaborative way, and they're looking at legislation that we have had before us in the past and breaking this into workable components so that we can finally get something done, closing these loopholes, making certain that the resources that are necessary to secure our border are there. And we look forward to them bringing their legislation forward once they have finished their components, and then we'll hopefully get some bipartisan agreement to get this border secured.
So is there anything that can be done this year? I mean, what can Congress do, Senator? Because, look, there are these rules. Yeah. For example, explain the rule around families. Explain the rule around the asylum standards. These are things that can be fixed very quickly. As you know, Senator Lindsey Graham said he's working on a package right now to bring to the president to actually close these loopholes. So explain to our audience why these loopholes are really enabling this to continue.
Right, and we have another hearing today in Judiciary Committee that Chairman Graham has called, and we're going to be, again, working on these issues. But these asylum rules where someone can, you know, approach the border, put one foot on our soil, and then claim asylum, and where they can claim it for all sorts of reasons, you need to tighten that up. Your watchers have probably noticed the chain migration policies. This is something that we need to shift that focus and disallow this chain migration and look at the nuclear family, if you will, and how they would come in. Yeah. And beginning to look at some of these high-skilled labor components. Seasonal workers. I hear from farmers, soybean farmers regularly, and those that are doing row crops, that they need the ability to have seasonal workers in for these. These are areas, beginning to pinpoint areas, focus in on it, deliver solutions are what we're trying to do at the Senate Judiciary Committee, and in a couple of hours we're going to be right back at it with another hearing.
All right, we'll watch that. And also coming out of the Judiciary is all of this hoopla around William Barr. Your reaction to what's taken place, where the House Democrats want to basically hold him in contempt. They want him out. They do not want him to continue the investigation that he's been doing. And, of course, that is zeroing in on why the FBI launched an investigation into Donald Trump to begin with during the 2016 election.
You're exactly right. And what the Democrats need to realize is they lost. They lost the election in 2016, and they can't get over it. And Bill Barr has done an admirable job, and they're going to just continue to needle away. You're right. When I talk to Tennesseans, it is find out how we got into this mess in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the answer they want.
Oh, that's what we've been covering for the last 2 years, for sure. Senator, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Marsha.